morning, friends. Mark Holmes here with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo, as well as Joe Bear in the house. And as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. So let's get over and let's wake up the football gods here on this Saturday. And don't forget, tomorrow, 4 o'clock Eastern, we'll be doing our live stream Zoom-in call. If you're a channel member, you can be part of the conversation. If you're not, you can watch and comment, of course, just like we do our regular live streams. But we'll definitely have a lot to get off our chest. Last weekend was event session. I guess we can have this as event session too, although the Cowboys have made a few moves yesterday, re-signing, of course, Van Der Esch for $3 million, getting Dorrance Armstrong back underneath the team, as well as Luke Gifford, and, of course, then signing James Washington, wide receiver, and also bringing in Dante Fowler. Okay, Fowler, not Flower, Fowler. Excuse me. Let me make sure I get that right. You know, I am the name butcher, the word butcher, and things like that. Just understand, you know who I'm talking about. And there was a little bit of confusion last night. I was talking about the Bobblehead Company, and I probably mispronounced it because someone sent me an email and thought I was talking about the other guys. But it's FOCO, F-O-C-O. Is the company with the bobbleheads. The other one is the ones that make the little mini people, the FOCO people or whatever, okay? I can't, listen, I got a list. Whatever. You understand what I'm talking about. But we're going to be getting a Roger Staubach throwback bobblehead doll, and we're working on being able to get actually a Joe Boo bobblehead doll. That's what's going to be crazy. Joe Boo bobblehead doll. It's going to take some months for them to get it together and things like that, but that is coming soon. So, with that being said, let's get on to business here with the Dallas Cowboys. Basically, the money that was there for Randy Gregory, they ended up using that to bring in Dante Fowler, to bring in James Washington, re-sign Van Der Esch, and so on. These are I'm not going to say that these are awful moves. You know, you have to have a mix. You know, when you make a dinner, you can't rely on just one great ingredient. You have to add some other things in there to make the meal. You know, you get the steak, but you got to have, like a little bit of garlic and a thyme and rosemary and stuff, to give it that flavor, a little bit of wine, a little Worcestershire sauce, a little balsamic vinegar. You got to have some salt, you got to have some pepper. But the main piece is a steak. And once you get the steak, you build the other pieces around it. And see, that's where you still look at this and say, okay, we got the side pieces, we got the spices, but we still need the main piece to go together. Now, Dante Fowler has had kind of an up and down time in the NFL. Dante Fowler was originally drafted by Jacksonville, and in his second year in Jacksonville, they went out and got the guy that I wanted to get. Okay, here's my thing. I've been screaming the same thing forever. I will probably die still screaming the same thing because the Dallas Cowboys just won't do it. But for me, everything starts from the line. Be it on the offense, if you've got the offensive line that can control the defense, you're going to be able to do whatever you want to. And the reverse, of course, is true as well. If your defensive line can control that offensive line, it's going to make it hard for the offense. And that's where a guy like Calais Campbell, when he was a free agent from the Cardinals, that it made sense to try and go and get him. Stephen Jones will never make that kind of move because he'll say, I don't want to spend a whole bunch of money for that guy. Well, if you spend a good chunk of money for a guy that's good for you for 3 or 4 years, really good, it's money well spent. Stephen Jones loves his one-year deals. But for me, I'd rather look at the long game. I don't want to spend all the time and the effort in trying to teach this guy my system and get him up to speed to play, become a better player and let him go on someplace else. I'd like to be able to bring that back so that way I can take and add to that. Now I'm starting over from scratch. So for me, you need to go ahead and get primo guys that are more than just a plug the hole guy, and you'll get better results. But, that's their philosophy. When Jacksonville actually made it to the AFC Championship game, Cowboys haven't made it to a championship game in how long. They ended up having strength in numbers of really good players. You had an anchor like Calais Campbell. You had other outstanding players. And Dante flourished in that system. When he went to the Rams with Aaron Donald and other good people out there, you'll see his numbers. They flourished. 11 sacks in one season. We're going to take a quick look at some highlights, and hopefully the NFL police won't get me on this. This is from 2020 with him. And we'll just get a little taste, just a little taste of what he is. He's got speed. He can move. He's good in traffic. He's an outside linebacker. He's quick. I don't think he can deliver a blow. I don't think he makes the boneheaded penalties, which sometimes can be key. You can see that he can get in there. He can get in there, and he can meet you man on man, and he can jump on your back. Not a bad player. I'm not going to say he's an outstanding. I'm not going to say he's a great one. But if you take a guy like him with a Dan Quinn, with what he's doing, who knows what it's going to be like. We thought when we brought in Robert Quinn, who was coming off of like a 5-sack season, definitely down years in Miami, we brought him here, and all of a sudden he became an 11-sack guy, goes on and gets a $75 million deal with the Bears, and at least we end up getting a compensatory pick. So let's not necessarily say, okay, this is a bum. The guy clearly has some skills, clearly has something left in the tank, and if the Cowboys can maximize that, then great. You put him in there in a rotation where you have Terrell Basham, where you also have the mainstay comes in. That's where you get Bobby Wagner, because to me, that guy is the linchpin to everything. Now, of course, everybody will say, well, Randy Gregory, we lost Randy Gregory. He was one of the best, most outstanding, pass rushers, and he's dynamic. But if we actually go through and look at the numbers in a direct comparison of their careers, and these are game per game statistics and things that we have so we can compare apples to apples. If we look at it, Dante Fowler has a lot more experience because he's got 91 games under his belt, 137 tackles versus 64, 59 quarterback hits to Randy Gregory's 52, 35 sacks to Randy Gregory's 16 and a half. Now, I'm not going to try and sell you and say that Dante Fowler is better than Randy Gregory. However, he has had an 11-sack and an 8-sack season. Interestingly enough, Randy Gregory has actually been in the league, believe it or not, longer than Dante Fowler. He's got less miles on him because he's been suspended so much. But they've been in the league 2015 and 2016, which was surprising. I thought Dante had been there actually longer than Randy Gregory. But here's the interesting thing. If you look at the game statistics, Dante Fowler actually has a higher solo tackle rate at 1.5 per game to Randy Gregory's 1.3. It's not a big difference. It's not a big difference, but it's still, you're getting a little bit more. Assist-wise, he's almost doubled the amount of assists that Randy Gregory had. His sack rate is a notch higher than Randy Gregory's, believe it or not. So you start looking at it and saying, okay, maybe there's not as big a drop-off as we thought. Now, coming off of last year in quarterback hits, this is that's playoffs. Playoffs?
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs?
If we go through here, let's go back through. This is Randy Gregory's stats for the season. He ended up having 6 sacks, 29 pressures, 19 combined tackles, 12 hurries. That was good. That helped us out. But he didn't play in all the games, too. He did have a couple injuries, with the knee, and I believe he had knee surgery, too, this offseason, as well as having COVID. Dante Fowler, this past year, not exactly chump change. He ended up having 8 quarterback hurries, 4 knockdowns, 4.5 sacks, 17 pressures, and more tackles combined, 36 to Randy Gregory's 21. So this isn't a bad move. This is not a bad move. Is this Von Miller? Probably not Von Miller. But for the price tag that you got, okay, this is a value pickup that you can say, okay. But we still need to get a few guys to get us over the hump. And we have yet to do that with the Dallas Cowboys. So that's a start. Later on, I'll do something with James Washington. James Washington, I think, again, that's what Stephen Jones would say is, of course, is a value pick. These are guys that have some experience, but not necessarily the outstanding players. The problem for the Cowboys is you now see teams that are beyond just good players. You're looking at some super teams between the Rams and Tampa Bay and maybe even Green Bay. Green Bay losing Devontae Adams but gaining an extra first and a second round. For them to have 2 number ones and 2 seconds, that's huge. They can end up reloading and getting some more weapons for Aaron Rodgers and some defensive players that can make a difference. So what you're seeing right now is you're seeing a couple of really good teams that are getting up there. And we are somewhere in the middle. We're not down there with the Giants and things like that. We're, in our division, you got to think it's us and the Eagles, and I think we have the advantage over them. But winning the division and cranking out a bunch of victories there, you may not be able to compete with the Rams or the 49ers and the Green Bay Packers and the Tampa Bays unless you start getting some premier talent. And we can't just draft our way out of this. We still have holes. We still need the monster, the run-stop monster there. I still believe we need the linebacker. That's where Bobby Wagner could help. We got to get Jaron Kearse into the fold. And we've got 2 offensive linemen, that 2 spots that we need starters. And you have to still wonder about Tyron Smith. So you've got to get a valuable backup because it's proven every year it seems like it gets a little bit worse every year with Tyron Smith. And if we don't have a backup plan for Tyron Smith that's legit, we're going to have the same results where come next year we'll be sitting here saying the same thing. The Dallas Cowboys suck ass. And that's it. So I hope you guys are having a great Saturday morning. I got my coffee here. Need to go out and do some grocery shopping. Got work to do in the workshop. And, of course, I got to keep my ear open for any news on the Dallas Cowboys. And with that being said, it's time to roll up out of here.
Our coach here, and as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report.
You did one hell of a job, and the only thing else I got to say is